Well, g'day. How you going? My name's Jono. I'm here on the Business in Barefoot Sandtrax Tuesday morning live feed. Sorry, I'm a little bit late this morning, but I'm just giving a few minutes. I'm out in my yard and we've got 18 chickens just down here, and I'm just giving them a bit of time to get over their squawking fit, which seems to have happened. So hopefully you won't hear too much of that anyway. So welcome to another mentoring moment. It's so good to be here. I look forward to these every single Tuesday, particularly this time of the year. It is just so beautiful here in Western North Carolina. The fresh air, the sunshine, well, except for last week where it was raining. And today, I don't know if you can see it, but I am wearing a special t-shirt. If you follow me on Facebook, you might have seen it last night. But apparently it claims I do my own stunts. If you can see, it's got a bike and somebody coming off their bike. And so what it is basically, I said, well, what are t-shirts? What does t-shirts, what does mountain biking and all these things have in common with business? And what it is basically, we've just had Father's Day here in the US, and leading up to that, I was kind of joking about all these different t-shirts. But 4 weeks ago, I did a 10-mile ride, and on that ride I came off twice, doing quite a bit of damage, bruising and scraping and taking skin off my arms, and you can go back and look through some of my trail time videos to see that. But it was really interesting because out of that it was like there were different stories that emerged out of that. Firstly, it was like, well, you haven't really ridden a mountain bike until you've had a few accidents. I've been over the handlebars. I went over the handlebars twice in one ride. And then, it's kind of like, then the jokes start coming out. It's like, oh, is your bike okay? We don't care about you, but is your bike okay? And so, it was funny. It just got me in that sort of frame where I feel like, okay, I'm a real mountain biker now, and I'm part of the crew, and I'm part of a committed group, and they're all telling their own stories of things that happened. Funnily enough, I went out last week and a buddy of mine was riding with me, and he came off his bike and he's still injured this week. So it sounds like it's a really safe sport, right? but it actually is a lot of fun. And so why do I tell you that? Well, one of the things I do when I'm out in the trails is I actually do a thing called a trail time video, and that's a chance for people to connect, or for me to connect with people. And it's usually just when I'm out exercising and riding, then I can, think about things, and stuff comes up that I don't already. If you see me swinging around a bit, there's actually just a bit of breeze picking up. I'm hoping, Linda, that the microphone's not picking up the breeze too much. But yeah, so it's just interesting just being in that space and being able to then share some stories, relate it back to business. And I see that alone just as a space where I can get out and about. So today, we're going to talk about storytelling. All right. Now, you might wonder why that's important. Okay. Now, we already know from a marketing perspective that storytelling is so important. But what does it mean? What does it mean for? Thanks, mate. What does it mean for a startup, a solo entrepreneur? What does it mean for you? What does it mean for bigger business to be able to tell better stories? Go and have a look at your average website. Okay. Go and have a look at some of the businesses maybe that you work with, maybe that you support. Even the non-profits, all that sort of thing, whatever community groups you're involved in, go and have a look at those websites and note how much they talk about themselves. All right. And so this is an interesting one because obviously we're in this space where we're trying to convey a message, right? But they talk so much about themselves. And so one of the things I want you to think about today is, who is the real hero in the story of your business? All right. Now, as entrepreneurs, we're so busy talking about what we do and how we can, we're pitching for the next thing and talking about us, that we forget that there's a market out there, or an investor, by the way, suppliers, whoever, that want to connect with us, that want to make that difference. And so this is where storytelling really comes in and becomes really powerful. Okay. So what I'm going to do is just go through a few things around storytelling and just talk about those. I've got some notes here with me so I don't forget anything. And so as we go through those, I want you to think about your own story. I want you to think about your customers and how are you putting your customer at the center of your story? How are you making them the hero of your story? And then, that comes back to then how are you adding value? How are they connecting with your purpose, with your own set of values? Because part of it is them connecting with us as well, right? So first of all, and the most important one is, I think storytelling really conveys a purpose, okay? There's a lot of noise out there today. All right, there is a lot of noise going on. There's lots of things happening. There's lots of challenges. And at the end of the day, the ones that stand out, think about, okay, so now think about, I'm in America. Think about the Super Bowl commercials. All right. Think about, for example, I think it was a year ago or 2 years ago, they did an ad, Tourism Australia did an ad in the Super Bowl that was like a teaser to a reboot of Crocodile Dundee, and everyone went abuzz like, but it was kind of told in a very story-like fashion, and it's like, okay, it now hands on to the son and to the next generation and all that sort of thing, and people are like, are they really going to do a reboot here? Are they really going to make a new Croc Dundee? And that sort of thing. People got very excited about it. So these ads, in that space in particular, they tell stories. Think about those ads you've watched. Like I fly Delta Airlines a lot, and they have their tagline, "Keep climbing," right? And they go through this song. They have this song, and it plays at the beginning of every movie, and they've been using it in their online advertising too, which is "Hi ho, it's off to work we go." And it talks about it really appeals to our digital nomads as well, but it talks about the people that are traveling the world, that are the digital nomads, or the nomads in general, people who are working and having to travel for business. And the whole song is just the Seven Dwarfs song from Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. And so we all know that song. You probably got it stuck in your head right now. And so it's funny because as a traveler myself, there's a piece of me that sort of tells one story. It's like, oh, I'm one of those people. And then there's a piece of me that goes, oh, I'm one of those people, or was one before all this happened. And so I connected with that story, right? So you can hear their purpose. Their purpose is to connect with the business traveler, to make them feel like they're part of the Delta family. And that story really conveys very strongly, and it conveys a purpose, okay? Storytelling must create a heart connection, okay? Even if you are, even if you're pitching to an investor, okay? Even if that investor comes across as the hardest, most pragmatic, we've seen the TV shows like Dragon's Den and Shark Tank, right? And you actually see even there where the people make a heart connection, they make a personal connection to the investor, their investability goes through the roof, right? So the same if you're selling a product, your product purpose, your product stickability goes through the roof if you're making that heart connection. People always connect emotionally, and then they backfill with logic. So you've got to still have the logic there. But the trick is, and particularly for a lot of our people who are very technically minded, engineering, products, those sorts of things, what can happen is that we can get very technical about what we do and the benefit and all that sort of thing, rather than making that heart connection with potential investors. Stories definitely transfer your values, okay? If you don't know your company values, then they probably look something like you, or at least in your team. They're going to look somewhere like you because you're leading that team, even if you're a team of one. And so I encourage everyone to take time to think about their values, think about what do they want their business to represent, and then tell a story around that. And then every story you tell is all about conveying those values, okay? Stories really help make decisions, okay? Once again, on the pitch deck, if you're just pitching, but if you tell a story, you tell it how it connects. So it helps, for example, it helps the investor connect your idea, your product to, a potential target market, so they can see where there is potential money to be made. They can see where it will go. And more investors are becoming more purposeful today too. They're wanting to invest in stuff that matters, not just stuff that's going to make money. Now, the making money is always going to be important, but they do want to invest more in stuff that matters. So thinking about making sure that you think about, that it does convey those values, that it does connect. And in all of that, it'll become really engaging, okay? And so that the natural flow on is that engagement piece. So a couple of other things here. Storytelling creates stickability. I can tell you the number of business books that I've read, but the ones that are written in what they call narrative form, where they tell a story. So there's a few like that. The 5 dysfunctions of a team is an example. The Power of Purpose, I think, was one. Anyway, there's a few out there. They're written in narrative style, or they're written around a story with some pragmatic bits added to it. because we connect with story, because we have a greater recall, because we're able to regurgitate that information in a more logical way, because that's how we're wired. We're wired as individuals to be human, and we're wired to be human, go figure. So we're wired as individuals to tell stories, and human stories at that, okay? Now, the one that I really love here is that stories create a natural call to action. All right, so these are all what good stories do, by the way, because you can write bad ones too. So good stories create a natural call to action. All right, so what are you wanting to get from whoever it is? Are you pitching to an investor? Are you looking for a supplier? Are you talking to a potential customer? Are you trying to get new team members on board? Create the engaging story. You know, I look at employee brands, for example, and the ones that do that well create the engaging story, not provide the ping pong tables, bean bags, and nap pods, right? They actually create a great, compelling story to belong to, something that matters to them, and then that helps them connect with the right people, because if it matters to the people that are joining them, it matters to them. And so the natural call to action should be that next step where they just go, I want to be a part of this. I want to connect to this, okay? And so it's almost like through the story you've told, you've actually led them there anyway, okay? So think about that. So obviously a call to action. So a call to action isn't will you buy my product necessarily. It's taking whoever you're talking to. So it could be the investor, to get them a term sheet to then have a further discussion, or for them to do a due diligence, or whatever it might be. For a customer, it might be, you know, they want to get a proposal from you, or they want to find out more about your products, or they want to look at a partnership. For a supplier, for an employee, it's well, okay, I want to now think about this job. We can now start talking terms and all that sort of thing. So understanding that natural call to action comes out of the storytelling. All right, so a great story finishes with some kind of, if we don't want to call it call to action, take it to the next level. All right, and so, you know, we're not trying to necessarily close the deal in that one statement. Maybe we are. It depends where you're at. But a great story will take whatever it is to that next space. Okay, so there's some things that are very powerful about storytelling. So how do we go about doing that? That's the next thing. All right, so the first thing that I always say to people, you know, is first of all, you need to be massively clear on what you want. All right, it's all well and good to tell a story, but what do you want from it? So there's a first step is, well, what do you actually want from your business? What do you want out of life? What do you want to connect with? And you know, it's interesting because, again, you when I see investors operating with, you know, with investees, with people pitching, there's a greater connection when they're very clear on what they want. All right, so think about what you want, think about the values you want to convey, the purpose that you have for your business, all those sorts of things. How do you weave that into a story? All right, so now you want to take all those elements and not just go, oh, well, we have a vision for bump, and our purpose is, and here's our core values, and this is the problem we solve, and bang, bang, bang. It's like, start with a story that actually brings your values through, right? So one of your values is integrity, then you might start with the story of how a journey of integrity played out with somebody around you, and how what you bring answers that problem, okay? So it's not just about answering the problem, but it's answering it with purpose, okay? Keep the story real, all right? You can spot a fake from a mile off. Mark, you're watching now, and I know you've seen plenty, I'm sure, where, you know, even the stories are contrived, or maybe the story is not well thought through in terms of, well, how did that go? What did you learn from that? What did you get from that? How did that create the problem that then created the solution that you're now pitching, and that you're now wanting to promote? Okay, and so understand that the story needs to be real, and try and make it yours. All right, so yes, you can talk about a story of something that happened in history, or something that happened to another business, or, you know, Coca-Cola did X, or Apple did this. Okay, we can all talk about how they do great storytelling, but at the end of the day, each one of us have unique stories that matters to somebody else. Okay, and I've discovered that along my journey, you know, where I've felt like, well, what do they care? But then it's just storytelling, and so people just engage and love it. Okay, so make sure the story's real, and particularly real to you. Okay, here's a really good one. Keep it simple. So obviously too, if you're thinking about it in the context of pitching, you've got a short amount of time. It's like an elevator pitch. You've got a very short space to actually connect with someone. Okay, so keep it simple. Make sure you rehearse. Make sure you've got your details together. Make sure the story is straight. Okay, and don't make it too canned and contrived. All right, so be relaxed, be you, and tell your authentic story. But keep it very, very simple. Obviously, one of the things we need to be looking at here, so now I need to be thinking about, okay, as I'm thinking about my target, so I'm thinking about the investor sitting in front of me, or I'm thinking about the employee that wants to come and work for me, or I'm thinking about the market that I want to go after. Does that story relate to the market? All right, so there are certain stories that even as a mid-Gen X, mid-early Gen X, that don't relate to the millennials. That don't relate to people 10, 15. I see a big difference between people 10 years younger than me. So I need to tell different stories. I need to connect with different stories or with the same story in a way that makes sense to them. Okay? If I start talking about 8-track tapes or records or things like that, they might be a little bit lost. Unless they're really funky and really into some retro stuff, or maybe they've been to the museum. But all of these things really matter in terms of making sure that it's relatable to my target market. Okay. We know that there's 2 fundamental questions that people ask in business: who are you and why should I care? Right? So stories should answer both of those questions: who are you and why should I care? All right. And so anybody who is sitting in front of you that you're pitching to for whatever reason, we've talked about a bunch of reasons why, anybody who's sitting in front of you has got these 2 fundamental questions subconsciously floating around in the back of their head. Okay? Who are you? Why should I care? Weave your story in. The story tells you who you are, the purpose, the reasons, all the things, the problem, those sort of things. The why should I care is obviously how you bring that solution and you solve their problem. Okay, so make sure that you answer those 2 fundamental questions in your story. All right. So then the next one would be making sure that you're building rapport. So as you're telling your story, watch for the connection points. Watch for those connection points. So as you're sharing your story, as you're connecting with people, watch how the connection is going on. So that can happen online, that can happen face to face. Watch for body language, watch for signals, those sorts of things. What's going on around? Are they looking like, hey, this meeting was finished 5 minutes ago? But online, it could be the comments you're getting back, or the fact that you're getting nothing back. It could be that you're not going into the right corners, or you're not triggering the right questions, or telling the story the right way. Oh, I can't believe I did that. Sorry folks, this is live video. I hope you can still hear me. I just unplugged my microphone. We'll edit this out in the replay, but Mark or Linda, can you let me know that you can still hear me, please? And I'll keep going. That sounds like a negative. Either that or you're offline. I'm just going to keep talking. If you can't hear me, then somebody will tell me soon, surely. All right, so the next thing then is obviously we've been talking about building rapport, okay? So tell it the right way to make the right connections, all right? And that's going to be really, really important. The right way, making the right connections, okay? So we talked about that. We talked about that, how you connect with you. And so part of that's knowing what you want, knowing who you're talking to, knowing what's in the room, and then watching for the connection points, okay, and how you build that rapport. Keep your story straight. Stay on task. Stay on the story. This is why I've got my notes here today. So I make sure I cover everything. I stay on the story. Otherwise, I could go off on all sorts of tangents. And so keep your story straight. Make sure that you are very clear on what you're trying to say, and simple and succinct. I've mentioned simplicity before, but just keep it clean and clear. All right. You don't need to embellish it. You don't need to upnote yourself. It's just, here's the story. And thanks, Mark. And so, yeah, we're obviously got a bit of a delay. I'm getting reminders now that I'm working again. So, yeah, so keep the story straight, keep it simple, keep it clear. Remember, tell the same story. Consistency really matters, all right? This is just part of your brand now, okay? So telling the same story is really important. And one of the things I really encourage you to do, particularly if you're doing a pitch or if you're doing an elevator or you're doing a keynote, something like that, where it's in a contained space, so you're not having a series of conversations, is start and finish with the same story. Okay? And I'll try and weave that one in today. But yeah, so start and finish with the same story, because it creates that stickability. It creates that, yes, there was technical data in the middle. Yes, there was features and benefits, right? But also, you know, there's this story that helps me connect and understand that. Okay, so make sure you do that. All right, we're going to wrap up with a few things now. Where should you tell your story? Well, let's start with everywhere and work our way backwards. Okay, so now when I say everywhere, one of the marketing nightmares is everyone who or everywhere that, okay? Now obviously we need to target and we need to know where our audiences are. This is knowing what we want, knowing who we're talking to, all that sort of thing, and who we want to build rapport with. But we need to look at those locations where we're going to tell our story. Our story should come through everything. It should be really obvious visually and textually on our website. It should come out in all of our videos. It should come out in our keynote presentations. It should come out in every single post that we put on social media and the way we respond to other people's posts, okay? Even that tells a story. It should come out on LinkedIn. It should come out in your bios. It should come out in all those opportunities. If you do training, if you're building a product, the product itself should actually convey some of that story that you want to tell. All right, think about, again, we're going to think about the big products, but there's no reason why you can't do this. You know, you can think about Apple and what the story conveys there, which is probably a different story now to what it was 15 years ago maybe. But understand that in all of those areas, when you network, okay, this is the big one where it's really important to think about how can I add value to people rather than how can I tell you everything about what I do. All right, so it gives you a chance to listen. And if you take that frame, it actually creates a better listening frame in terms of you being able to connect, which automatically builds rapport. So as you hear people talk, connect with those real life stories, all right? And help them really connect with you in that way, all right? So really, where can I do this? There's so many places. Watch your storytelling, keep it consistent, make sure that this, you know, it might be seasons of stories too. Obviously you don't want to tell the same one over and over, it gets boring, but it might be seasons of stories. There might be stories around certain events, or there might be stories around, you know, like I see at national meeting time, which is usually the beginning of the year here in America, most of the national meeting kind of motivational conversations start with a conversation around American football, because the national championships have usually just been played, which is the college football system here. Or, you know, Super Bowl has been played or whatever. And so there'll be a lot about what a coach did or said or how plays happen. And so they tell stories that are also current and relevant. You know, there's a lot of people telling stories about COVID right now here in the US and around the world about Black Lives Matter. You know, there's lots of stories being told and people weaving themselves into those stories. And that's okay, but make sure there's a consistency of approach, okay? If your product has nothing to do with COVID-19, don't try and fake a way in there, right? But you know, there's a million ways to get in there. You know, for example, with me, I don't do anything medical, although I do service medical clients who are impacted by COVID, you know, and they're selling more as a result. But at the same time, I help people understand where they're at and how they can plan, you know, for effectively for the unplannable coming up in the future, how they can think differently and be more forward-looking. Okay, so understand how your story slots in and how it relates to the current day. All right. But I want to reiterate just one last thing, that consistency is the key, okay? So a clearly articulated and well-pointed story that conveys your purpose and values and leads the target to the next level, it's an absolute critical tool in your communication belt. So what does all this have to do with mountain bike riding, with wearing a t-shirt that says I do my own stunts? Well, I told you a story at the beginning. I connected with that. Okay, and at the end of the day, one of the things I love, and right after, I've got another call in about half an hour, and right after that, I'm looking forward to getting back out on the trails again today, because it's a place where I clear my head. It's where I connect with the people I care about the most. And it's the place where, at the end of the day, I probably do my best business, not doing any business at all, because it's my time to think, it's my time to collect, it's my time to connect. And so you know, it's funny that I spend a lot of time on the trail, either hiking or riding. And so I end up with this t-shirt because my family knows how much I love that sort of stuff, and they've been really listening to what I'm passionate about. And so this is an interesting thing, because your story will also convey what you're passionate about and help people connect with you. That's all we've got to say today. I'm going to hang around just for a minute or two while we talk about what's coming up. I'm Jono Brake, as always. Enjoy the journey. So we've kind of moved away from the regular sort of set mentoring time, Zoom call times. We've found that the feedback's been people are pretty zoomed out and all that sort of thing. So one of the things we're looking to do, or we have started doing, is we started interviewing an entrepreneur each week. Okay, so last week we've had Tammy Holzman in the past. Last week we had Dave Lowe on board as well, and you can go back and watch these videos here and you can join our page on LinkedIn as well and connect that way. And we're putting them up on YouTube too. Well, they're all coming from YouTube, and so they are great spaces for you to learn from these people, to hear some of their stories. Dave talked last week so much about mindset and how he had to shift in this season in particular to be able to just be viable, and what he's come out with and the product ideas going forward are amazing. And so this week we're talking to May King. May King was actually on our group call last week. She's a social media guru and is going to really help us have a unique look at social media and how we can use it better for our benefit to profit our businesses. So you won't want to miss that one. But each of these calls, even though we do post them live on Facebook at the time, they're there, the recordings stay there, so you can come and check them out at any time. And actually we've found that most people really, we don't get many on the live call and we get a lot later. So it's great, to see people actually consuming those videos later on. That's all we've got to say today. Thanks very much for being here. Appreciate you all and appreciate what you're doing. If you have any questions, we're going to keep watching the feed. You're welcome to come and join us here in Business in Bare Feet. Like the page, but also come and join the Sandtrax community. The Facebook community is free, and it's just a great conversation amongst entrepreneurs, startups, business people, digital nomads, all that sort of thing. And then there is, if you wanted to take your business to the next level, there is the opportunity. Go to sandtrax.co and join our club. It's Marco Linda will put up the fees right now. I think we're doing a quarterly special for $97 as a startup special. But come and join it. We have some really great conversations in there, and that's where you get to meet mentors even a little bit more personally, a little bit more one-to-one, okay, through communication channels. So that's a great opportunity if you want to really nail your business in this season. Come and join us inside the Sandtrax club. Once again, as I said, I'm Jonathan Brake. It's been a pleasure being here. Thanks very much. Hope you all have a great day. Bye.